Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, Dravida, Prabhu. We can't.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dravida. Thank you for giving this talk this evening on the most auspicious event of GAUR PURNIMA. So, we'd like to say a few things about His Grace Dravida Prabhu. For those of you who may not know him, I think everybody knows him in Columbus. He has been coming over a decade. But Dravida Prabhu is an initiated disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He is a very expert in, he's a scholar in Vaishnava literature. He's a poet, he's a musician, very famous for his poems. You might have heard his poems when he comes to Columbus or elsewhere. He has done many services for Srila Prabhupada. He has been an editor for 45 years in publishing and editing Srila Prabhupada's books, Back to Godhead magazine. He was instrumental in producing the remaining volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. He also has revised the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Krishna book. And he's very expert in verses and very devotional. He preaches regularly at ISKCON San Diego temple. And he's like Shiksha Guru to me and to many others in ISKCON Columbus and so many devotees all around the world. So we would like to welcome His Grace Dravida Prabhu by saying the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, Dravida.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Prema?
Yeah.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Let me offer my obeisance to all the devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. It's good to be connected again, my Columbus friends. It's been a rough year, no traveling and kind of hunkered down, locked down and so forth. But GAUR PURNIMA always is an ocean of nectar. So I'll try to share some of the few drops that I've gathered over the years. I'd like to begin, as always, with my respects to Srila Prabhupada. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschata Deshatarine Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Urmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I feel very honored and fortunate to be able to say a few things about Lord Chaitanya for the assembled Vaishnavas on this glorious GAUR PURNIMA day. And I'd like to just begin with the verses at the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a selection of them, which gives us a very definitive view of who Lord Chaitanya is and the internal and external reasons for why he appeared. And so I'll begin with a verse that many of you know, hopefully, the second verse of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, very appropriate for offering obeisances to Gaur Nitai on the altar. If you forgive me, I'm going to add a little music to the background here. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gododehe Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonodo. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gaura to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. And then I'd like to share a verse with you. This next verse, there's a little mantra that I like to, a little saying that I like to contemplate sometimes. This is the foundation of our whole movement and our whole faith in the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's embodied in this third verse of the Adi Leela, written by Subdhammadar Goswami, I'm pretty sure. and it encapsulates who Lord Chaitanya is. So the little mantra, the saying is that Krishna is, our faith is based on Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. And that's what this verse proves by a very definitive statement. So, Yadadvaitam Brahma Upanishadi Tadapyasya Tanuba Yatmantar Yami Purushahiti Syosyang Shivibhava Shadaishraya Purno Yahya Bhagavan Saswayamayam Nachetan Yat Krishna Jagati Padatatvam Padamiha. What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body. And the Lord known as the Supersoul is but his localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. And then in the next 3 verses, sorry, it's a little Sanskrit heavy, but these are like seminal verses for our whole movement. Krishna's Kaviraj, quoting here from the next verse from the Vidagdha Madhava, introductory verse by Rupa Goswami, he gives 2 verses describing, one verse describing the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance, and 2 verses defining the internal reason. He has both of these reasons that he has appeared with, and I'm going to explore that a little bit. So this verse is very wonderful. Anapita charim charat karunaya vatirna kalau samapi hitamunnato dvaradasam sabhakti shriyam ahare purata sundara dhutikadamba sandipita sada vadiya kandare purata vakshachi nandana. Now before I give read the translation here, just a little note on what is known as Mangalacharan. These are all verses called Mangalacharan, which are a series of verses at the beginning of any major literary work, Sanskrit scriptural work, that has various functions. One is it offers obeisances, which he did at the very beginning to the gurus, etc., and to the verse we read, the Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. Another is to offer blessings, and also to define the subject of the work. And that was there in the 3rd verse, the one that we read about Lord Chaitanya's being done different from Krishna. So this verse describes, as I mentioned, the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance, and also gives a blessing to all the readers and hearers. So the translation is like this. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the hue of molten gold, he has appeared in this age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no other incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. And now 2 verses describing the internal reason why Lord Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikutir Ladani Shakti Rasman Ekatmanav Abhibhupada Deha Vedam Katautam Chaitanyakyam Pakadamadana Tadvayam Shaikyamaptam Radha Bhava Duty Savalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they separated themselves. Now these 2 transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Now I have to give one little editorial aside in case you happen to be reading along with me. For 20 years after the Chaitanya Charitamrita marathon in 1975, this verse read, although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. And this is how Prabhupada originally wrote it in his old Back to Godhead. He was serializing this Chaitanya Charitamrita for a while. But then when he heard it read to him, he said that shouldn't be. They separated themselves eternally. Rather, that should be previously. They separated themselves previously. So that's why you may see a little difference there. So this change, a revision, was done by Srila Prabhupada himself. So in this verse. By the way, these verses are all explored and explained in subsequent chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This verse is explained in chapter 4, along with the next verse, describing this, how Radha and Krishna are one, in the sense that Radha is actually the Ladani Shakti of Krishna, the personified prema. And their loving affairs are manifestations of this Ladani Shakti. So they're one in their identity, just like the sun and the sunshine, but they separated themselves previously when they appeared on earth. Radha and Krishna were separate identities. And now, after all these years, 4,500 years later, they've again united as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Lord Chaitanya, as I'm sure you all know, is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. And that will be explained in the final verse I'm going to read here at first. And he appearing for the internal purpose of relishing his service to himself from Srimati Radharani's point of view. And externally, he came to give love of God at the highest levels to everyone in the world, including us. And finally, I'll read this text. It's text number 6. Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanaya Vaswadyo Yenan Buddhamadurima Kidrisho Vamadiya Saukyam Chasya Manonobhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobha Tadbhavaja Samadinisachi Garbhasindo Harindu. Desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love, the wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love, and the happiness and bliss she feels when she realizes the sweetness of his love, the Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appeared from the womb of Srimati Sati Devi as the moon appeared from the ocean. So this verse is nicely explained also in chapter 4, and how Lord Krishna is described there. He's in Vaikuntha, he's in Goloka, and he sees a reflection of himself in a jeweled pillar, sometimes at the floor, something very shiny. He sees himself and he's stunned by his own beauty. And he begins to realize that he can't appreciate his own qualities or his beauty as much as Srimati Radharani does because of her unlimited love for him. And so out of a desire to experience himself from her point of view, experience just what it is that constitutes her love, the glory of her love, and the bliss that she feels from loving him, experiencing prema for him, and experiencing his love for her. All of these experiences were impossible if he was just as Krishna in the spiritual world. So therefore he appeared as Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Srimati Radharani and with the color of Srimati Radharani in order to relish those experiences. And he especially experienced them and showed them in the last 12 years of his manifestation in Jagannath Puri, where he didn't go anywhere, and he's always been doing Kirtan and hearing Gita Govinda and other works from his intimate associates like Ramananda Roy and Sudamada. So, and that is especially described in the Antya-lila. So these are who Lord Chaitanya is and why he appeared. And I wanted to read one more verse, if you'll forgive me, all this Sanskrit, but I'm going to read a purport here also. And that is a verse describing Lord Chaitanya's mercy, especially. And this verse was spoken, excuse me. This verse was written and uttered by Swarup Damodar. Lord Chaitanya, when he took sannyas, he, as you may know the story, there's so many wonderful pastimes surrounding that. He immediately started for Vrindavan with Nityananda. They were walking. He wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping. All he was doing was chanting and relishing and thinking of Vrindavan. But the devotees hadn't had time to say goodbye. He hadn't to bid him good, have one last meeting with him. So Nityananda, conspiring with Advaita Prabhu, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya, they conspired to take Lord Chaitanya back to Shantipur, actually, and to meet one more time with the devotees and with his mother. And so Swarup Damodar wasn't there. He had already gone off to Varanasi to take sannyas. And so after Lord Chaitanya bade farewell to everybody and he took off to Jagannath Puri, then he stayed there for a very short time and converted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. That's wonderfully told in chapter 6 of the Madhya Lila, I believe. And then he took off for South India for 2 years. He was preaching basically by chanting Hare Krishna everywhere. And whoever saw him and heard him immediately attained love of Godhead and began chanting, and they went home to their towns, and people would associate them and also become devotees. And this way he was spreading Krishna consciousness very widely throughout South India. And then after 2 years, there's many adventures there I won't get into, meeting with Ramananda Roy and so forth. He returned to Jagannath Puri, and this return was a tremendous event. You can imagine they were feeling such vipalammas of separation from Lord Chaitanya, both in Jagannath Puri and in Navadvip, back in Mayapur. So when he came back, there was a gathering. Everyone came, and they stuffed into his little room, the Gambhira there. If you ever visited, it's very small. And it was a very moving scene. And at that time, Swarup Damodar, he came back and he uttered this verse at that time. It's a very wonderful verse, all about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And in this verse, it's a long verse, but the word daya, as many of you know, this is one of the words that means mercy in Sanskrit. It appears 12 times in this one verse. You can count them when I'll give you the reference. The reference is Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 118. So this is what Swarup Damodar said. Helo dunata kedaya vishadaya pronila damodaya Samyak Shastra Vivadaya Vasadaya Chittar Piton Madaya Shaswad Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Maryadaya Sri Chaitanya Dayana Deta Vadaya Bhuya Ramandodaya. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation by making everything blissful and pure. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service and glorifies conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. And now I'm going to read this purport. It's not very long, which Prabhupada expands on this idea of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, because after all, this is why we're here, because of Lord Chaitanya's expansive mercy and how he spread it all over the world. Prabhupada begins his purport by saying this important verse, which is from the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natika. This is a play by Kavi Karnapur, wonderful play about Lord Chaitanya. Specifically describes the Lord's causeless mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in 3 ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he is always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands, and in this way a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. There are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. I know I did before I encountered Srila Prabhupada's movement and his books. I was reading, the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the autobiography of a yogi and some Upanishads, and I was completely bewildered. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. That confusion, that mitigation came in the form of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which I highly recommend. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss, accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus, the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifested in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. A lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. In the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with the pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Next, by the Lord's grace, all misconceptions are vanquished and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he's firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna conscious activities separate him from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step, the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he's untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. So these are some of the verses Srila Prabhupada has given us in his Chaitanya Charitamrita to attract us to Lord Chaitanya and to inspire us to do what is necessary to get the dust of the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya, he manifested this mercy in many ways, even from his very childhood. And I'd like to share one of my favorite pastimes with you. And that many of you may already know this pastime, but it's ever fresh. And that is when Lord Chaitanya was just a little child, maybe 3 years old, running around his house, naked. He then took an opportunity to reveal himself and to give darshan to a great devotee who happened to visit his home on a pilgrimage. And this pastime is told in great detail in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. I think it's mentioned in the purport in the CC. But I'd like to share some of the wonderful description of this pastime of Lord Chaitanya's baby Leela, and in which he was also giving the mercy of his darshan and bestowing the mercy and giving out pure love for Krishna to the qualified souls. He would give to unqualified souls, but this was especially qualified. So this describes his life, some of his life in Navadvip, during his childhood. He's about 3 years old. One day, a very pious mendicant Brahmin paid a visit to Navadvip, and he came to the house of Jagannath Mishra. Now, Jagannath Mishra was a very exalted Brahmin family, Brahmin, and he was known to be a very pious Vaishnava. And so he attracted this mendicant Brahmin to come. He was worshiping the Lord with a Gopal mantra, 6-syllable, which seems to be Om Kleem Gopal Namaha. He would chant that constantly. And in the course of visiting various holy places, that fortunate Brahmin arrived by providence at the home of Lord Chaitanya. He had a little deity of Bala Gopal around his neck, along with the Shalagram Shila. he constantly chanted the name of Krishna, that Gopal mantra, while he kept his eyes half closed and internally he experienced love of God. When Jagannath Mishra saw the effulgent Brahmin, he greeted him, respectfully offered obeisances, uh, washed his feet and poured that all over it. I think they drank it, him and his family. And then he asked the mendicant, "Where is your residence?" And he said, I'm a wandering mendicant. I go wherever my restless mind tells me to go. So Jagannath prayed, "Your travelings for the benefit of the world. I'm especially fortunate to have you here. Please order me. I will arrange for your cooking." So the Brahmin said, "Do whatever you feel suitable." So then Shachi Devi, pious, chaste wife exalted wife of Jagannath Mishra immediately cleaned the kitchen very thoroughly and provided all the ingredients and paraphernalia ready for the Brahmin to cook. So he did that. And then Shachinandan, Lord Chaitanya, he's the super soul, and he knows just where this Brahmin is at. So he decided to give him darshan. So the Brahmin has now made the offering. It's on the altar, and he's chanting Gayatri, he's chanting his mantra. And Gaur Sundar comes before him. He's completely naked, covered with dust, very beautiful. His eyes are reddish. He's smiling at the Brahmin. Takes a handful of the rice right off the altar and starts eating it. So the Brahmin says, hi, alas, alas, this naughty boy has stolen the rice. So Jagannath Mishra came there and saw Nimai was smiling as he ate the Brahmin's rice. In anger, Jagannath Mishra rushed to beat the Lord. But the Brahmin got up and he apprehensively and took hold of his hand and stopped him. Hey, Mishra, you are said to be a cultured Aryan. What's the use of beating this ignorant boy? Only one who can distinguish between right and wrong may be beaten. Therefore, I forbid you from beating the child. Jagannath Mishra then sat down in distress, holding his head like this. He couldn't speak or lift his head. The Brahmin said, "My dear Mishra, don't feel sad. Whatever is meant to happen on any given day will happen by the grace of the Lord. Please bring whatever fruits and roots you have, and I'll eat that today. No problem." Jagannath Mishra said, "If you at all consider me your servant, then please cook again. I will make all the arrangements. We have all the ingredients for cooking. Please cook again. I will feel satisfied." All the friends and relatives of Jagannath Mishra present there also requested the Brahmin. So the Brahmins coming there was a big event and people had gathered. So there were many friends of Jagannath Mishra. So they all said, "Please be merciful to us and cook again." The Brahmin said, all right. According to your desire, I will certainly cook again." Everyone was very happy and they prepared the kitchens for him to cook again. So, but they had to watch out because they knew Nimai might take the rice again. So this child is very restless and may spoil the offering again. So take him to another house until the Brahmin finishes cooking and eating. Sachi Devi then took her son in her arms and went to a neighbor's house. So now all the ladies are there. And so now they warned him. He made a mistake here. "Listen, Nimai, you shouldn't have eaten the Brahmin's rice like that." The Lord smiled in his moon-like face and he replied, "What is my fault? The Brahmin called me." So this is something that he did repeatedly. And no one can understand. He's really speaking the truth here. This is fact. The Lord smiled and said, "I'm a coward boy, and I always eat Brahmin's rice. How can a coward..." Oh, so what the ladies were saying is, "What, Nimai, why have you done this? Deceitful Nimai, what will you do now that you have lost your caste? Who knows that Brahmin? What is his caste? Where is he from? Now that you've eaten his rice, how will you maintain your caste?" Because he's the son of an exalted Brahmin, you see. So you have to watch out what you eat, who you associate with. So then he said, "I'm just a coward boy. I always eat Brahmin's rice. How can a coward boy lose his caste by eating a Brahmin's rice?" Saying this, he smiled at everyone and charmed everyone. In this way, the Lord revealed his real identity while speaking deceptively, but by the influence of his yoga maya, no one could understand what was going on. So everyone laughed. Everyone means all the ladies. It's just with the ladies now, the mothers. Everyone laughed upon hearing his explanation. No one wanted to set him down from their embrace. So they're feeling, as the Lord smiled and sat on various ladies' laps, Whoever held him merged into an ocean of bliss. So he's giving the mercy to all the ladies there just by teasing them. Meanwhile, the Brahmin had finished cooking again, so he sat down to make the offering. In meditation, the Brahmin called Bala Gopal to eat, and Lord Gurusunda, the Super Soul, immediately came to know this. He put all the ladies into illusion, everybody, and then he secretly came before the Brahmin with a smile on his face. Unseen by others, the Lord then took a handful of rice and ate it as the Brahmin watched. The Brahmin immediately cried, "Hi, hi, alas, alas!" And the Lord, after eating the rice, fled away. He knew that Jagannath Mishra was coming after him this time. Enraged, Jagannath Mishra got up, took a stick in his hand, and chased after the Lord in anger. The Lord fearfully fled into another room with Jagannath Mishra right behind him. Jagannath said, "Just wait and see what I'll do to you today. Although I'm an Aryan, you consider me a fool. Who has such a great thief for a son?" Saying this, Mishra chased after the Lord in anger. Everyone present tried to restrain Mishra, but he said, "Leave me alone. Today I'll beat him." They then pleaded, "Oh, Jagannath Mishra, you are by nature magnanimous. What kind of intelligence would you exhibit by beating him? He doesn't understand right from wrong. Whoever beats such a child is a great fool. He will not learn simply by being beaten. Children are all restless by nature." At that time, the mendicant Brahmin hastily came there. Holding the hands of Jagannath Mishra, he spoke. "Listen, Mishra, this child is not at fault. Whatever is meant to happen on a given day is certainly to take place by the will of the Lord. Today, Krishna has not allotted me any rice. I'm telling you, this is my realization." Feeling distressed, Jagannath Mishra was unable to raise his head. Again, he's down like this. He looked at the ground and simply lamented. At that time, the most powerful and effulgent Vishwarup appeared, Lord Chaitanya's elder brother. He came into the room. There's no comparison to the matchless sweetness of Vishwarup's bodily limbs. A Brahmin thread hung on his shoulder. He's the source of the Brahmin effulgence, and though in a different form, he is directly Lord Nityananda. The purport of all scriptures is eternally manifest on the tongue of Vishwarup. Thus, he is always engaged in preaching devotional service to Krishna. Seeing his extraordinary beauty, the mendicant Brahmin was struck with wonder and stared continuously at him. He then asked, "Whose son is this?" People write, "He's the son of Jagannath Mishra." The Brahmin was satisfied to hear this. He embraced Vishwarup and remarked, "Glorious are the father and mother of such a son." Vishwarup offered obeisances to the Brahmin. He then sat down and began speaking words that were like a stream of nectar. Now, it's getting to be like 11:30 at night now. "Whoever receives a guest like you has attained great fortune on that auspicious day. Although you are self-satisfied, still you travel about in order to sanctify the world. It's our great fortune that we have a guest like you, but we're also unfortunate because you're fasting. If you fast while staying in someone's house, it will simply bear inauspicious fruits. I'm greatly satisfied by seeing you, but I'm very sad to hear about what has happened." The Brahmin said, "Please don't feel sad. I will eat some fruits and roots. I live in the forest, so where can I get rice? I'm accustomed to eating fruits and roots in the forest. I seldom eat rice, only when it's easily available. I've become so satisfied by seeing you that I feel as if I've eaten millions of meals. Please go and bring some fruits, roots, or any prasadam, saved prasadam that you have. I'll eat that today." Jagannath Mishra didn't say anything. He just held his head in great distress. Vishwarup said, "I hesitate to speak, but I know that you are an ocean of mercy. It is the nature of saintly person to be distressed on seeing suffering of others." So you see, he's very skillful. First, he's saying that by not eating, it's going to be very auspicious for all of us because you'll be fasting. And now he's appealing to his soft, Vaishnav, compassionate heart that we're all in distress because you're not eating. So if you cook one more time, then then you won't fast and we won't be in distress. So he's giving him all kinds of motives to cook again. Vishwarup says, "Vaishnav always try to make others happy. So if it is not too much trouble, please cook for Krishna again. Then my family's distress will be vanquished and we will attain transcendental happiness." So the Brahmin said, he's still reluctant, "I've already cooked twice, yet Krishna has not allowed me to eat. I have therefore understood that he's not allowed me rice today. If Krishna's sanction isn't there, why should we endeavor? One may have unlimited foodstuffs at home, but he can eat only with Krishna's sanction. If Krishna does not allot anything on some day, then even by endless endeavor, one will never achieve a thing. It is practically the middle of the night. Is it proper to cook at this time? Therefore, don't make any further arrangement. I will simply eat some fruits and roots. So now, the final appeal. There will be no fault if you cook, said Vishwarup. Everyone will be satisfied. Saying this, Vishwarup caught hold of the Brahman's feet, and everyone else also requested him to cook. So how could he refuse? Enchanted by Vishwarup, the Brahman said, all right, I'll cook. One more time. Everyone expressed their satisfaction by chanting the name of Hari. Hari Bol. They then quickly cleaned the kitchen and brought all the ingredients for cooking. Third time. The Brahman then began to cook, and everyone escorted Nimai to another room. Jagannath Mishra sat in front of the door where the child was detained. There's no way he's going to disturb this time. Everyone said, lock the door from the outside so he cannot get out. Jagannath Mishra said, yeah, that's a good idea. Thus, Jagannath Mishra and others sat outside after latching the door. From inside the room, the lady said, don't worry, Nimai is sleeping. He won't do anything now. As they guarded the child in this way, the Brahmin soon finished cooking. The pious Brahmin prepared a plate for offering and then sat in meditation and offered the food to Krishna. The super soul, Sri Satinandan, knew everything. He had already decided to give darshan to the Brahmin. Thus, by the will of the Supreme Lord, Nidra Devi, the goddess of sleep, deluded everyone into deep sleep. Now, there's a little tiny purport from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Everyone thought that since it was late at night, Nimai would soon fall asleep, so there would be no need to further guard him. By the will of this Lord, however, just the opposite happened. Everyone in the house fell asleep by the gentle touch from the tip of Nidra Devi's sari. That's a great touch. So Nimai then went to the place where the Brahmin was making his offering. Upon seeing the child, the Brahmin cried out, alas, alas, hi, hi. But no one heard him, for they were all fast asleep and they weren't waking up. The Lord said, oh, Brahmin, you are indeed magnanimous. You call me, so what is my fault? You chant my mantra and invite me, so I can't resist coming to you. This is a longer commentary. You always desire to see me, so here I am. Now comes the description of his revelation or darshan. At that time, the Lord exhibited a wonderful 8-armed form to the Brahmin. In 4 hands, he held conch, disk, club, and lotus. In one hand, he held a pot of butter from which he ate with another hand. And then with 2 hands, he played the flute. He played a flute. He was decorated with Marka Shrivats, while the Kaustubha gem and jewel necklace hung on his chest. All his limbs were decorated with jeweled ornaments. His head was decorated with a garland of fresh gunja seeds and a peacock feather. His moon-like face was beautified by his red lips. The Lord smiled as he rolled his eyes. His Vaijayanti flower garland and shark-shaped earrings swayed to and fro. His lotus feet were adorned with jeweled ankle bells, and all darkness was dissipated by the shining of his toenails. The Brahmin also saw the abode of Vrindavan filled with wonderful kadamba trees and the chirping of various birds. He saw cowherd boys and girls in all directions. Indeed, whatever he had meditated upon, he saw manifest before him. So he's getting a revelation of his long meditation. Seeing the extraordinary opulence, the pious Brahmin fell unconscious in ecstasy. Lord Gaurasunda, the ocean of mercy, then placed his lotus hand on the Brahmin's body. By the touch of the Lord, the Brahmin regained consciousness, though in ecstasy he remained inert and unable to speak. The Brahmin repeatedly fell unconscious to the ground and then got up in great jubilation. His body shivered and perspired. His hair stood on end. The flow of tears from his eyes was like the Ganges. The Brahmin then caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet and began to cry loudly. Seeing the Brahmin's humility, Lord Gaurasunda smiled and addressed him. Please listen, Brahmin. You've been my servant for many lifetimes. In a previous life, I gave you darshan at the house of Nanda Maharaj. Don't you remember? When I appeared in Gokula, you also joyfully visited the various holy places. By providence, you became a guest one day at the house of Nanda Maharaj. At that time, you offered rice to me in the same way, and after I ate your rice, I showed you the same form. In this way, you've been my servant birth after birth. For other than my servants, no one can see this form. I have thus disclosed to you the confidential topics that shouldn't be revealed to anyone under any condition. As long as I remain in this incarnation, you should not tell anyone the secrets that I've told you. Otherwise, I will kill you. I've incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement, and I will preach this process of chanting throughout the world. I will freely distribute the love and devotion that is desired by Brahma and others to each and every house. If you remain here for some time, you will see many such pastimes, but don't disclose these things to anyone. In this way, Nimai pacified the Brahmin and then returned to his room. So just to wind up, the Brahmin then, he stopped wandering. He stayed there in Navadvip. And then he would go begging, his food at different households, and then always come back to see Nimai at the home there. And he was considering, maybe I should tell Shachi and Jagannath that they have the Lord living there. But then he remembered the Lord's order and he didn't reveal it. But somehow it became revealed to Vrindavan Thakur, and he's sharing it with us. So this is just one of the many examples of the way in which Lord Chaitanya, in his Krishna, in his incarnation of Lord Chaitanya, bestowed love of Godhead on his sincere devotees. And there are many other pastimes. We don't have so much time. I guess oh my God, I went over. No, I'm not over yet. But this is just one very delightful pastime showing Lord Chaitanya's bestowal of prema bhakti and revealing himself and convincing us through these revealed scriptures, the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Chaitanya Bhagavat, that he is indeed Lord Krishna himself, come in this Kali Yuga to give prema bhakti to one and all. And we are so fortunate to have even a smidgen of faith in Lord Chaitanya and to be taking part in the movement that his wonderful servant, Srila Prabhupada, took seriously this prediction that in every town and village his name would be chanted. And with great austerity and compassion and love, he worked so hard to spread it all over the world. It was wonderfully successful. So I'd like to also share with you, because there was mention there that my poetry, which somehow always comes up, and I had a very creative period a few years ago in which I wrote a bunch of things. And what could be more appropriate than the Shikshastika? Lord Chaitanya, he codified his whole teachings there in those 8 verses, those 8 essential verses. And I put them into a poem. And in 2005, I had the great good fortune of chanting them in Mayapur to the assembled devotees. And some of you may have seen that on YouTube. It's Mayapur Dravida. You'll if you search for those 2 words, you'll find my little presentation there. So I'll leave that in abeyance if there's any questions or comments on some of these points. I think the main thing to come out of this conclusion is that just as Lord Chaitanya, he's had this Lord Krishna had this internal and external reason for appearing as Lord Chaitanya. And in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he perfectly showed that. He spent so much time and effort in spreading Krishna consciousness and giving mercy and teaching the principles of devotion to his disciples, such as Rupa and Sanatan and so many others, to propagate the science of bhakti. But he also had his internal reason, as we described in those first verses. And in those last years at Jagannath Puri especially, he relished the highest levels of prema bhakti, vipralamba seva, in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And that was also revealed to us through the notes kept by Subh Damodar and then Raghunadas Goswami and of course the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so we have an opportunity to witness that and partake of that and become inspired. So in the same way that Lord Chaitanya had an external reason and an internal reason, we also need to have both tracks in our devotional service. One, of course, is that we want to advance. We want to taste the nectar of Krishna consciousness. We should want to get out of this material world and go back to Godhead. And we have the perfect opportunity. We have the teachings that have been given to us. We have the society. We have the darshan of the beautiful deities here, Radha Natabar. And here we have Radha Hari. And by Prabhupada's great effort, and of course the books. So this is all, we should take advantage of them and advance as we know we should by cultivating our faith and associated with devotees and so forth. But at the same time, there needs to be an element of our devotional service that is trying to help others become Krishna conscious, whether it's going out on Harinam Sankirtan or distributing the books or just helping to gather devotees and new devotees for programs and festivals and all these different things. That has to also be there. And then we can really get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, especially. He was Lord Chaitanya's preacher in Bengal. Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. There's a whole other pastime we don't have time for, Jagai Madhai, in which Lord Nityananda and Haridas went preaching, and Lord Chaitanya gave him a simple formula. I put it into English. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. This is what they told the people who they met, and those who received it nicely. They were blessed with the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur, became pure devotees. So, with that in mind, Lord Chaitanya's great gift to the world is said Namo Mahavadanyaya. He's the most munificent avatar giving prema, and his vehicle for doing that was Harinam Sankirtan. And so in this Shikshastika, unless there are some comments or questions on these points, before I share this, I'm going to recite this poem. And many of you know the Sanskrit, you can chant along, but if you do, please mute, because there's a delay. Chetodapanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shreyak kaidavachandrikavatanam vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam pradipadam purnamita swadanam Sarvatma snaparam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal. The chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's name is sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention, as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Nam Namakadi Bahudani Disarva Shaktis, Tatra Pitani Amitak Smarane Nakalaha, Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Idrishami Hajane Nanoragaha. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potency, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Yet I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Trinadapi Sunichena, Tadorapi Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniyak Sadahari. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, to think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant his name incessantly until the final hour. Nadanang nadanang nasundarim kavitavan jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatan bhakti dahaituki prahi. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety. liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. Ainanda tanu de kinkaram patitam mahashame babam budhao kripayat vapada pankaja stitaduli sadasham chindaya. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. Nayanam kadadashadaraya, vadanangam kadadudhaya gira. Pulaka nichitang vapukanda, tumanamo, prahani bhavishati. Tears streaming from my eyes, my voice choked with bliss. The hair upon my body standing up in happiness. When will all these signs of rapture decorate my limbs? As I chant your holy name, the monarch of all hymns. Gaitam nimeshena chakshusha pravashaitam. Shunyahitam jagat sarvam govinda vidahena me. Every moment drags on like a million years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes, the tears in torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. Oh, Govinda, by your absence, I am being destroyed. Ashlishya paradatam pinashtamam, adarshanan mam hatang karotu va. Yata tava vadadhatu lampato, utprananatas tuzevana paraha. Let Madhava embrace this maid who's fallen at his feet, or let him trample me, or my most ardent hopes defeat, by never giving me a chance to see him anywhere, thus shattering my heart and plunging me to despair. You see, he is a restless libertine and not a saint, so let him act in any way he likes without restraint. Yet though his cruel and crooked ways may cause me constant woe, Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. And Krishna's copyright is given a Palashruti. These 8 essential verses Lord Chaitanya wrote to teach the practice and the goal of chanting Krishna's holy name. Day by day, whoever sings these verses soon will reach a little closer to perfection, spotless Krishna praying. And that's our little rendition of Ishik. Any questions? Any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prema, you there?
Yeah.
Haribol.
So one question is that in the, I think the third or fourth chapter of Adi Lila, it's mentioned that Krishna was wondering that if everybody worships me in this awe and reverence, they will never reach to Goloka. So I have to do something else to so that I can give this. And so Lord Chaitanya then came and he gave this Unnata Ujjvala Rasam, which we say is the highest.
Yeah.
But we still worship in awe and reverence the deity. And so, how exactly is this mood of spontaneous love uh, coming into this line of, is there some.
Well, when you analyze it, you see that it's true. Then when we worship the deities, especially Radha Krishna deities, there are so many rules and regulations, and we're meant to worship, as Prabhupada said, in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, and feel, that we're their servants. We're their servant, humble servants, and like that. But the main process for worshiping is the Harinam, chanting the holy name. And that chanting and dancing is not exactly in the mood of awe and reverence. Is all this celebration, and by the chanting itself, especially outside, when we go on Harinam, it's a different mood, and one quickly feels some transcendental bliss in the process, very process itself, and there's very little formality there. Anyone, anytime, as Lord Chaitanya said in that second verse, smarane nakala, niyamatak smarane nakala. There's no hard and fast rules. So that's the way in which we can break out of the awe and reverence. The awe and reverence is meant to be a foundational mood that we have. We should always be, and you read the Bhagavatam, and there's plenty of awe and reverence there, describing the glories of the Lord, the powers of the Lord, the energies, and so forth. But in the last verse of the Bhagavatam, talks about Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtanam yasya sarva papa pranashanam, and offering obeisances. So I think that's how we reconcile it. Certainly in the formal temple, when we're bathing the deity, certainly on the altar, performing all the ceremonies, there has to be that feeling of awe and reverence. But at the same time, there's a certain sweetness, just like there in with Radha Natabar dancing, and any of the deities. There's the sweetness of Radha and Krishna, and Lord and Radharani assuring, and oftentimes like we have this mudra. If everything is reversed, of course, it would be the right hand. Abhaya mudra, Abhayadan mudra. So I think that Lord Chaitanya's teachings and his focus on the teachings of Rupa Goswami, where there's so much emphasis on, the friendship ras and the parental ras, and of course the conjugal ras, that it may have a foundation of awe and reverence, but if you do it right, then more and more of the sweetness and the spontaneity enters into it. I think that's really why it can spread throughout the world, because as Prabhupada points out, just as he started the movement, just come and chant with us, and then take prasadam, and when you could chant and take prasadam, and you're amongst the devotees and making friends, this is something different than you'll find in the formality of the church and the other, where it's really based on awe and really fear of God. This is a different kind of approach to the Supreme Lord. And so there's always that element in the Gaudiya Vaishnavism of the sweetness of Krishna and the mercy and the compassion and the invitation to join in his pastimes, just become purified, train up, So that element is always there. And you see it in Prabhupada's books. In the Krishna book, in the 10th canto, there's certainly plenty of the power and glory of God and a lot of philosophy, but it's dominated by the special intimate relationship Krishna has with his devotees who love him. So it's a process from awe and reverence to more intimate service and awakening of real love. And then the fear of God dissipates, even to the point where, the coward boys, like I wrote one poem for, everyone knows this painting where Krishna and Balaram are running along, the Yamuna, and the boys are behind them and the cows are running, they've escaped from the restrictions of the town, their parents, and now they're free. So it says, let's go, said Krishna, don't delay at all. And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their coward friends who called, "Oh, Krishna Rama, let us join the fun." And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts to play in every bower, grove, and sward. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well to join him in his pastimes, which enthrall. The wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, "Let's go, my friends, do not delay at all." So that's the mood in Goloka Vrindavan. They're even, teasing Krishna and taunting Krishna, forgetting his position as the Lord, because they're overwhelmed with love for Krishna. Hare Krishna. Oh, Sadbhuj Chaitanya Das raised his hand. What's his question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
My question is like a generic question, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Like for most of the people, generally from Indian background, they can accept Krishna, which is also tough for them. Vishnu is better for them. But Krishna, they can accept. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like how do we make them understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different than Krishna? And Krishna, he is a supreme Lord. Like, is there any practical ways or tips like we can make them understand like this is non-different from Krishna?
Well, you can't make someone understand. The way to understand that is to associate, with the movement and take advantage of the temples and the association and the books especially, and the process. And that is that Bhagavad Gita is there. Prabhupada, that was one of his first books to give us, basic philosophy and understanding. And certainly, Krishna gives us a way in which we can, a lot of it is a breaking out of the birth, death, old age, and disease. That's a very important motivation for any transcendentalist, any human being who wants to, achieve any kind of goal of life should understand we're eternal. We have previous life and the next life, and it's, our next life will be determined by what we do in this life, especially the consciousness we cultivate and so forth. And so that's a basic impetus for being Krishna conscious. And so in that context, then you may come in contact with the movement, and it's so much more than that. Then you have the Nectar of Devotion and the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the books that describe how you can not only attain liberation, but attain the highest pleasure. There are two main motivations of every living entity, not just human beings, every living being that has some kind of a brain, not just some slug on the ground or some plant. And that is to maximize the pleasure and minimize the pain. In the course of material life, there are so many sufferings that take place, so many needs we have to fulfill. And if we can somehow avoid the suffering and fulfill the needs, and then we're successful on that day or that moment, whatever. But it's impossible. Eventually, time overtakes you, and your body goes. There's some disaster. Everything is a failure, and it's just a whole bunch of suffering. Dukkha, right? So one of the elements of knowledge Krishna describes in the 13th chapter is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. So a great impetus for our spiritual life should be to get rid of these, four miseries. Don't take birth again, attain liberation. But we know that liberation itself, by itself, is not complete fulfillment for the soul. Because what are we going to do in that liberated state? The Mayavadis, the impersonals, think that, there's nothing to do. We're just free of that. We're once again merged into Brahman, and you exist in Brahmananda, being free from misery. But that's unnatural. That's impure, according to the demigods who prayed to Krishna in the womb. Right? Avisuddha buddhya, impure. Aruha kritrena padang padang, by great austerities, just by stopping the mind, stopping the senses, controlling, you can maybe get up to Brahman. But you can't stay there. But you're averse to serving Krishna's lotus feet, you have to come down again. Because our nature is to have this swarup. We have a certain eternal spiritual form for serving Krishna. And we're denying that if we just come to the point of Brahman. It's artificial. So it doesn't last, doesn't work. So once you learn these things, and you see that, okay, it's a very good impetus for staying serious about Krishna consciousness when we realize the miseries of this material world. Do we need any bigger reminder than this COVID insanity that's been taking place for over a year now? That you can't be happy here? No matter how much money you have, you're still threatened by that. And that's just one thing. There's always another thing coming down the pike. So once we're convinced of that, then we can begin investigating and taking Krishna consciousness seriously. And we can chant, because we want to go back to Godhead, want to get free of misery. But in the course of that chanting and in the course of that serving Krishna, something else happens. And that is Krishna blesses you with some taste, with some attraction for him. These festivals are wonderful for that. If it wasn't, I was toying with my little history is illustrative. I was practicing Hatha Yoga. Then I got involved with the Ramakrishna Mission in New York. They have a very big facility there. And I was going there regularly. I was going, and I wasn't involved with the Hare Krishnas at all. And then by Krishna's arrangement, a Ram Bhakta was also came to the Ramakrishna Mission, and he knew about the temple in Brooklyn, the Hare Krishna temple. And he's the one who first asked me to go down. I had a car, he had no car, so we drove down there. And that's where I first encountered the devotees. It was too much. you know, all of the essential, I came in the middle of a big kirtan, a lot of, 100 devotees dancing. And I was into, quiet meditation and all these stuff, I had nothing, so it was too much at first. But luckily, eventually, I got the book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and I was very philosophically inclined. And that fascinated me and intrigued me. And I got, eventually I joined up, 73. Almost exactly 48 years ago, March 27th, 1973, I moved into the temple. So the point is that yes, if you have your general mood toward God, toward Narayan, toward Lakshmi Narayan, you understand, and you understand Krishna is non-different and so forth. But how to get past the awe and reverence, because Krishna, he's standing there, he's playing. He doesn't show his glories, so readily. He hides them to evoke a more intimate love from Mother Yashoda and the gopis and so forth. So that's kind of hard to understand, and it takes a while, and therefore we have, the Nectar of Devotion and other books to understand. But when we realize that the service to Krishna ultimately means acting for his pleasure, then we learn, and we can understand from our own lives that his pleasure for him is letting down his hair, so to speak. In other words, not this official, I'm God and you're my servant, but rather how he can enjoy Sakya Ras and maternal love from his mother, and paternal from his father, and all of these, especially, and conjugal Ras. Therefore he's hiding all his glory. So if we really want to be servants of God, which will include all, freedom from birth and death, we should try to please him as he wants to be pleased. And that includes serving him in a more intimate way. It's a gradual process, but it can be done,
Thank you
Okay,
very
I
much.
think I've gone over now. Sorry, I can see prasadam is being served. So, and I've got my own program to get ready for in the evening here. So thank you very much for indulging me.
Thank you,
I hope somebody got something out of it. And just to glorify Lord Chaitanya in any way on this day is so blissful. Thank you. Are you there, Prema?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your wonderful class, and we hope to see you again
Yes.
soon in Columbus and also
You mean
in
in
person.
person? You mean physically?
Yeah, hopefully. See you soon. So,
Yeah, I've been doing some sloka sessions with Lalita and some devotees, but I can give some other Zoom classes if you want.
yes.
Okay, so have a happy remainder of GAUR PURNIMA day. All glories to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
His Grace Dravida Prabhu ki.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol Prabhupada.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hari.
Jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhus. So we'll have some short announcements. I would like Sadhu Chaitanya Prabhu to speak for a couple of minutes on today's festival. Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hare Krishna devotees. Today is a very exciting and a very wonderful festival we had at our temple. And we just had finished the Abhishekam ceremony, and a lot of people attended, and over 200 boxes of prasad has been distributed today. And it's been cooked by Nithachand Prabhu and helped by various devotees since morning till evening. And so many people involved in the festivities, from doing Kirtan. There are various dressers are involved. And yesterday there was a cut-up, and there was like a monthly Sankirtan festival was happened, headed by Prem Sindhu Prabhu and Hari. So everybody was like so many books being distributed. The holy name was distributed throughout the Columbus, in downtown Dublin and various other apartments and everywhere. So it was like a very, very wonderful. And there are like multiple sponsors today. Some of them want to be anonymous, and including Ramanjit Kaur Bansal Mataji and their family. They also sponsored for this festival. And as you know, this whole temple has been running on the sponsorships. So we request and everybody to take part and do any kind of services, volunteering services, or like helping in the kitchen, or helping any kind of activities, or like doing some sponsorship, or at least visit the temple sometimes and take part in the Zoom programs. until we open the, go to the regular normal mode of getting the programs on the festival and sun programs. So please do join, and thanks for all joining today, and wish you all happy, very happy Gaur Purnima. And so any other announcements, Prabhu? And this is what we have so far.
So, Prem Sandhu Prabhu, you wanted to add something? Or?
No, Prabhu, I'm good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu?
No, it's nothing to add.
Okay, Prabhu. You're all able to hear me, right? I want to take this occasion to also thank Sadhguru Chaitanya Prabhu. I know he's a very humble person, a humble devotee, because he is the one who actually tied this whole thing together. He has done a lot of planning, and a lot of work goes into this kind of event planning and all those things. And it's really Sadhguru Chaitanya Prabhu's selfless service which we were able to have this festival today. Really,
Hari Prabhu, Hari Bol Prabhu. Actually, this is not a one-person show, but it's like a whole.
I know, but somebody has to
just,
coordinate this whole thing, right? So that was Sadhu Chaitanya Prabhu. So that is really thankful to you.
I think people are waiting for the doing Kirtan at temple.
So, yeah, they will do Kirtan, no problem. And so one more final announcement before they can start continue with the Kirtan is just wanted to make sure, like from next Sunday the timing is changing. So instead of 11:20, we will start at 11 o'clock the Sunday feast Zoom program. So please join at 11 o'clock so that you can have half an hour Kirtan and then the discourse. So with this, I think the temple Kirtan will go on for some time, and then they will close the Zoom after that. So, Prabhu, can you continue the Kirtan, please?
Alek Prabhu or Darpan Prabhu?
Devotees, we can all stand, put our mats away, we can stand up, we'll have stand-up Kirtan for some time. Hare Krishna! And as Dravida Prabhu was saying today, that he was referencing a book, we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have the Chaitanya Charitamrita available for you if you don't have it in your home. Please take it today, don't delay, and make your life perfect. Hare Krishna!
Oh, यहाँ से this is the camera. That side is showing up, right? Not this side. No, this side. Oh, this side is showing up. I just did like this. Yeah, yeah.
Been more than a year.
Now I know your trick. You are also fooling me. Actually, they can hear you. Oh, they can hear you.
No, that's true.
They can hear you.
They can still hear.
Are you
recording this?
Hey, nice. Oh my Krishna. He's recording.
I'll put it there. You have to just hold it.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Bolo Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Bolo Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Bolo Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Jai Bolo Sirana Tabaraki, Sisirana Tabaraki, Sisirana Tabaraki, Gauranga, Gauranga, today is the day. Gauranga, Gauranga, Nityananda Rao, don't forget. Nityananda Gauranga, 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 Nityananda Okay, this time, Gauranga, 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 Prabhupada ki! Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Asukasura Shri Srimad Abhay Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki! Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Asukasura Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki! Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki! Namacharya Srila Haridasa Thakur ki! Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadri Dham ki jai. Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Ma Yamuna Ma Bhakti Devi ki jai. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Abhibhav Didi Mahamotsav ki jai. GAUR glories to some devotees. Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to the lotus feet of Guru Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada